Hey, it's Larry Sharpe here at FreedomFest, having amazing conversations here, talking about human respect, talking about ethics, morals, and all kind of great stuff. And I'm very lucky. I have with me here Douglas Findlay. How are you, Douglas?
I'm doing great. Great to meet you.
Please.
Great to meet you.
Who are you?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm a retired Fed. Mm-hmm. Glad that's over with because at heart I'm an inventor.
Oh, I like that.
But I also love everything from science and existentialism and philosophy. I'm a Nietzsche kind of guy.
Sure. Now, do you read it in the original German?
No,
I'm teasing you. I'm totally teasing you.
I yes. bought it in the, the translated version of it. It was so hard to read. That stuff is so dense.
Absolutely. So I want to talk a little bit about that, I guess, right? Nietzsche is a very interesting philosopher in how he thinks. I want to talk today about the idea of someone's ethics versus someone's, maybe their values or their morals. What I mean by that is, there are a lot of people who would consider themselves more conservative or more liberal, and they might want to make the world like them, right? If I'm more conservative, I want the world to be more conservative. More liberal, I want the world to be more liberal. I get that. But at what point should we start thinking that it's no longer about persuading someone? Now I should start using coercion. I should use some form of force or threat or coercion or theft or fraud to now get someone to be either more conservative or more liberal. When does that come? And the reason why I ask that question is I think most people want to be happy. I think you would agree with that, right? Most want to be happy.
That's reasonable.
Yeah, most want to be happy. And to do that, if we use force or coercion in some way, I think most people would agree someone's going to be unhappy.
Yes, I agree, but I look at it at a bit of a deeper level.
Okay.
And this does come from, my, following of Nietzsche's.
Sure.
I can't say I'm an expert on Nietzsche, but I can say that he's the most thought-provoking philosopher I've ever read, and he makes you think of the situation.
I think that's true.
And that to me is much more important than just telling people what they should think.
Sure.
And which gets back into the happiness part, and that is that Nietzsche dealt with a lot of suffering, both in his personal life and in his writings, his thoughts.
Sure.
And the thing that I grasp out of that isn't that everybody needs to be happy. It's meaningfulness.
Oh, meaningfulness.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So do you think that meaningfulness would create happiness, or happiness creates meaningfulness? Which one comes first?
I think they're different dimensions. Because
different. Okay. Not the same.
Because there is, just to make a little bit of a comparison, or a contrast, I should say, there's meaningful joy.
Okay.
And meaningless joy.
Okay.
There's meaningful suffering and meaningless suffering.
Okay.
And the meaningless suffering is usually what people think of when they think of suffering.
Got it. Okay.
So we don't want anybody to suffer. Well, you're kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
So let's walk down that suffering road. Let's use suffering as maybe as a synonym for unhappiness. Right?
Okay.
Can we use that for that suffering?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely.
let's
In any
that.
form of it. It could be anxiety. It could be worry. It could just simply be that things aren't going your way and they just never seem to be.
Absolutely.
Everybody has to deal with that.
And I think we all do. You're right. So most people who care about others, if I care about you, I want to alleviate your suffering. If I care about you, right? And if you care about me, you want to help alleviate mine. You want to try. Do your best to do that. And I think we often do that through law or rules. It's a common thing that we do. Now, the issue I have is, again, if I'm more conservative or more progressive, I might think that your life would be better if you were more conservative or more progressive. I might believe that. But if I want to use coercion, I tend to follow into politics. Republican, Democrat, usually. Not always, but usually. But if I don't, I'm worried about, more importantly, human respect. And why do I say that? Because you talked about meaning. And how do I know what you will find meaning in?
You can't know.
I can't.
You can't get, unless you take up residence inside of my head, you cannot do it.
Exactly. So how can I alleviate your suffering if I don't respect the fact that you're going to know what's going to give you meaning? And if you don't know, you have to work through that till you find whatever is that meaning in your life.
Right.
So it's difficult for me to do that. So I'm assuming that you would agree that if I'm using coercion, again, violence, threat of violence, stealing, fraud, then I'm not really respecting your desires, not respecting what you might find meaning in.
I agree.
Right?
You're projecting onto me
Bingo.
what you think will alleviate my suffering. So
Right.
I ought to be happy, grateful.
Of course, you should be grateful. Because now that I'm taking away your stuff, you should now be grateful
Yes,
or whatever.
yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you for running my life. It was so I had my hands full.
There we go. Do you think that's universal? And what I mean by universal, I mean, do you think that's always true?
Well, it's true in the sense of people being, by and large, empathetic.
Yep. Most are, true.
I'm letting Nietzsche creep in a little bit here.
Okay.
But a lot of alleviating suffering, although it's outwardly altruistic,
Yep.
in many cases, the person's relieving their own suffering
Yes.
at witnessing, some tragedy or some injustice or something like that. So that's where boundaries come in.
Got it.
You have to be able to help somebody, but not take ownership
Got
of
it.
them.
Right. Right.
And that's it's a pretty clear line if you think about it, but it's not painted on the streets or
It's
sidewalks.
almost like you know when you cross it.
Most people don't know.
You don't know when they
don't
cross it.
No. I have a neighbor of mine that I love
But that's a
dearly.
problem now, right? Because now I see you suffering and I care about you. So now I feel bad. So in reality, I want to alleviate my suffering.
Yes.
So I do something to you or for you in your better interest, that I think, to make myself feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you don't feel good, now I'm mad at you.
Yes.
I think
that's true.
everyone's failing now here.
Yeah.
This coercion thing isn't working.
Well, a good helper for the boundaries is this concept that's commonly called Dunbar's number.
I don't know it. Tell me.
Dunbar's number is actually a spectrum of numbers. It's written by Robin Dunbar in his book, How Many Friends Does One Person Actually Need? And it's a very scientific but entertaining book, and it explains something that we all kind of know once you hear about it,
Okay.
and that is that you have a very small number of closest loved
Sure.
ones, and then a somewhat larger number of friends, and then acquaintances,
Right.
and then people you can recognize or,
Oh,
or
right,
so forth,
right,
and then
right.
people that are only archetypes in your mind.
Got it. Right.
So they're not
Right.
actual people. It's
Right.
like, I'm thinking of, somebody who's handicapped in Kansas.
Got it.
Well, I don't know anybody but I
Right.
can picture it instantly,
Right.
and I can relate to you about somebody who's
Right.
dealing with
because
a
I made up
particular
an
situation.
archetype in my head who that person is.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
Now, when it comes to the caring and the alleviation of suffering, my personal experience that I love is that I take care of the closest ones to me first.
Ooh, there
and
we go.
maximally.
Okay.
And when it comes out to strangers, well, that ends up being, breadcrumbs off of the
Sure.
off the tabletop.
Absolutely.
And so many people, including my family when I grew up, we'd treat our family members horribly.
Yes.
But as soon as somebody would come walking by, it's like, I love you, son, that kind of thing. Actually, it wasn't so much that. It was more like, I want to help them. I want to,
Right.
So the need to alleviate suffering,
You're saying
in
it's
many
actually
cases,
selfish.
are, well, sure.
You're saying that actually the desire to coerce others is actually selfish.
Well, it has to be, because it's something
Has
that
to
you
be.
want.
Got it. Okay.
And I'm using selfish in the same way Ayn Rand uses it, in that book, The Virtue of
Absolutely,
Selfishness.
sure,
you
sure.
can be a total creep and be selfish, and you can be the most virtuous
True.
thing that landed on the planet and be selfish.
Sure. I get it.
So it's
I see
a
where
lot
you're
of
going with
times
that.
a lot of times there are words that we automatically assume are pejorative, and
So,
they're not.
but
I
let
use
me-
technical terms.
Let me move to that one piece then. So you're agreeing that the idea of coercion is going to end up with someone losing happiness, someone losing their prosperity, someone losing their harmony. That's going to happen if we start using coercion. And the better way would be persuasion, if we could do it, right? By showing people through our example or through our works or through our community,
Yes.
and getting someone to go, yes, oh, you know what, I should do that.
And there's a key.
Right, Douglas is doing that. His people are happy. I should copy what Douglas is doing.
There's a key to that, to doing it effectively, and that is to take the time and have the presence of mind to actually learn that person, to pay
Ooh.
attention, to be present when they talk. When they say something to you, don't look for something where you can, kind of like inject your thoughts.
Right.
You need to be collecting. When
Got
you're
it.
talking, you're projecting. When you're listening, you're collecting. So if you take the time to absorb what somebody's saying and even say back to them as best as you can what they're trying to articulate to you, well, then all of a sudden, there's an actual relationship.
So what
that is
you're
being
saying
created.
is, whether you agree with them or not, whether you like their lifestyle or life choices or their politics or whatever, you're saying no matter what, show them human respect.
Yes.
Respect them either way.
Yeah.
Whether you like them, don't like them, doesn't matter.
And you can't fake
Respect
sincerity.
them. Oh, I like
can't.
that. I like that. And
I
that comes.
got to give a shout out to my friend Cheryl for telling me that when I wrote it down and I said I was going to steal it. So
I love
here we
it.
go.
Stolen and given credit. Nicely
Yes.
done.
Yes.
So yes, nicely done. So okay, so good. So this is, in your view, this is actually like a natural law. This is a principle that's basically unbreakable. Is that right or no?
Well, I consider, in my own lexicon, laws to be made by nature to govern reality.
Made by nature to govern reality. Okay.
And everything else are rules which are made by men to control other men.
Got it. Okay, so this would fall into a law then.
Yes, yes. And,
Okay.
and the best kind of, nature's laws are forces of nature, where you take
Ooh.
advantage
Okay.
of something that naturally happens, the grain, the flow, etc. And then you just simply hop on for a ride, or you just surf that wave, so there's a lot of energy available in nature when it comes to interpersonal relationships
Sure.
that we can take advantage of. Just everything from choosing a mate
Sure.
to being able to say no when you need to.
Yep, that can be hard too.
In
Absolutely.
many cases, the hardest things to do are very easy choices. It's just getting yourself to do that thing that needs
Right.
to be done.
Right. Okay.
And
I got
think,
you.
And I think
okay.
that fits pretty well with the whole concept of really paying attention to somebody and trying to find out where they're coming from.
So let me move, if I could, to something else. Okay. What about policy issues or big issues of the day? One would be like, you talked about finding a mate. Should government or...
No.
There we go. You've answered the question. So no, government should not be involved in who we choose. What if...
Hey, let's get married. In fact, you know what? I love you so much. Let's get the government involved.
Yes, but what if, though, the government believes, and the people who are saying this, their intentions are good. In other words, the person who says, no, I need to control who you marry, isn't doing it because they're angry. They're not trying to be mean. What if their goal is, this is what's right for children? This is what's right for the family. This is what's right for the community. So their intentions aren't bad. They're trying to do the right thing. They're trying to make your life better. Does that change whether the government should do it or not? Because their intent in this case is good.
I'd have to say no.
Okay.
And the reason I say no is because, let's just take the zeitgeist right now.
Okay.
With all of the sexual stuff that is in politics and everywhere.
Right.
Everybody's talking about it. One side or the other, it's just in the front. It's on the front burner.
Right.
In America.
Okay.
There are many things that I see that I absolutely, without qualification, absolutely oppose.
Right.
But I would never make another parent do something with their kids.
So you think even in that case with children, still it's persuasion, not coercion?
Well, here comes some more Nietzsche.
Okay.
There's a Darwinian aspect to it. If you want to self-select your body right out of the gene pool,
okay.
well, that's nature ultimately wins.
Okay.
Pendulums can swing, but if you look at the law of large numbers, it's all moving in one certain direction.
So the concept of showing and living human respect is a natural law in your view?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think a really big part of respect is that, thing I talked about earlier, the boundaries.
Right.
I would show much more respect for you if I let you figure it out, if I even let you fall down.
Absolutely.
Rather than my empathy taking over and
you mean your
taking
sympathy?
over empathy, the quality of feeling somebody else's pain and so forth.
Right.
Now that can be, I had a problem when I was growing up because I was just way too empathetic, and I ended up just being a doormat and taking on everybody else's problems
I see.
and things like that.
Okay.
And what I discovered is that empathy being a two-edged sword, if you want to call it that, but having two sides.
Right.
Empathy also allows you to do what I mentioned, is paying attention and being present and understanding somebody. So that way, you actually kind of get inside that person's head a little bit, because there is that unique bond. Every individual is unique, which by direct extension, every relationship is as unique as the people who share that.
So you're even going not to respect people as a whole, you're saying even respect the individual that's in front of you. Like every person should get human respect.
The individual is and always has been the most persecuted minority in human history.
Sure.
The individual, because it's always about the group.
There we go.
In fact, in our society, we talk about the individual and liberty and all these important things that we stamp on our coins and buildings
Right.
and so forth. But the problem is the Founding Fathers didn't have the tools at the time to understand other ways of doing things. What would they have to go by? They had a monarchy,
Right.
they had parliaments.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
yeah.
let's kind of rearrange it. And what do we
Right.
have today? We have a mosaic of monarchies all across the country. We're
true.
electing kings.
Right. No, I
Okay,
think you're
so the paradox is that we want to have this system of government to promote and protect individual liberty, but then we use collectivist mechanisms to do it.
Right.
And so if you're an individualist and somebody wants to run your life, you have to push back,
Right.
which people do.
Right.
Well, how are you going to push back against a group? Well, you got to form a group.
Right, exactly.
So what you
Yes.
basically have to do is you have to switch sides.
I get it.
And that's why it's so hard to
And
get
that's
people
why
to
it's
push
not working
back.
right now.
Right.
Yes, I'm with you. I like what you're saying.
So
let me ask you though. You've spoken about Nietzsche, empathy. Do you think that people would hear it better or maybe respond better if we were talking about this from the idea of a natural law, to use your words, of human respect? That respect, it doesn't matter if you agree with the person or not. You still have a First Amendment right to say what you feel is appropriate. But the idea that I respect you enough that, to your point, I'll let you fail. I respect you enough that I'm going to let you view my community, my works, my example, and hope that you will then turn and move towards me and be happier. Do you think that will be a better way of communicating that than using someone as dark as Nietzsche?
Well,
or maybe I'm wrong.
I'd say kind of yes, but getting back to Dunbar's numbers, who are we talking about? Are we talking about an archetype that exists in our mind? Am I going to
think we're
respect
talking
the archetype?
about communicating to people in general as we're communicating, which will sometimes be one-on-one like this.
Right.
Will sometimes be on a TV or a video or something to others that we don't even see. Sometimes it'll be to groups.
I'd say
But I
I
mean,
could
in
get
general.
behind it if it's person to person.
Oh, got it. Okay.
If there's a middleman involved, I don't care if it's the government or a corporation
Got it.
or whatever. If there's an intermediary, an intercessionary, a gatekeeper, if
Right.
you will,
Yep.
or something like that, that is where, not that that's bad, but that is the open door for bad things to come in.
Agreed.
It's wide open.
Agreed.
And if you have a motive that's like a profit motive or a control motive or I'm going to screw up the world in my own image motive.
Sure.
That's where they come in. They
Got
can't
it.
come between you and me.
Right.
They
So
can't
you're
do
saying then if you're talking one-on-one, it does make sense to use human respect as a place to start where people can have better conversations.
Yes. And then when it comes to people who are further and further out on the Dunbar scale,
Right.
all the way to the people that I can recognize on TV or a random person I would bump into on the street, there are certain respect levels that are proportional to that. So it's kind of a scale.
Right, sure.
So, for example, if I'm randomly running into somebody on the street, human kindness is standard. It absolutely is. Not interfering with somebody, not intruding into their life, etc. And get back to a little bit of observing
Yes,
first.
but I'm more worried about.
But when you get to like a big policy
Bingo,
thing,
that's
a
what you read my
universal
mind.
rule.
Yes.
Well, the problem with universal rules is that rules almost always have unintended consequences.
Yes.
And that people always think, using the Dunning-Kruger curve, I believe
Oh,
it is.
yes, that's right, yes.
People always think they know more
Yes,
about things
absolutely.
than they actually
That
do.
one I know.
So,
Yes.
so that's why you'll see legislators, for example, that will be all over some issue and not really know the specifics of the
Right.
issue.
But think they do.
There was a senator in
Yes.
Colorado who sponsored a bill to ban large capacity magazines. Okay. And a reporter asked her, well, what are you going to do about the ones that are already out there? Are you going to go around confiscating them? Are you going to grandfather it? And she said, oh, we don't have to worry about that. They'll use them up and then they'll have to buy new ones.
There we go. See?
So
That's
she
how that works.
doesn't even
No
know
idea
how
that
a thing
yes.
works, but she's in control
Right.
of how it works. So
let me then ask you here. Do you look at the principle, the natural law of human respect as, there's a primacy of it, meaning that we should always look at some way of using persuasion and not coercion unless we have to, unless it's for the greater good or something like that? Or do you think, really, there's no exception? We really should always be trying to use persuasion kind of no matter what? Where's your head on that?
persuasion is it's kith and kin to productive associations.
Okay.
Okay, and associations are probably the most rewarding, productive, and life-affirming experiences that we have in the short time we're on the earth. Are the associations we make and what we do with.
So you're saying it should be no matter what?
Well, it's just a fact.
There we go.
It's just a fact.
Just natural law.
I'm not saying
principle.
you should do this or that person over there that I haven't met should do this. But if I'm going to talk to you or vice versa, and there's persuasion involved, well, the first step, of course, was being present, paying attention, learning that person as much as you can. So that's kind of fundamental across the board. But also, you can't lead with criticism. You can't do that. It's like, hi, I'm Douglas. You're doing it wrong, by the way. Right. That's how to not make friends.
So we're talking about communication. Let me ask you, is there a way you might change your communication after talking now and thinking about the idea of human respect? Is there a way you might change your communication now, using that phrase, human respect, or thinking about human respect, or something like that? Is there a thing you might change?
I'm not sure, because I do pay attention a lot to respect. So, being 65 years old, I'm pretty set in my ways on a lot of things philosophically. I mean, I struggle to stay open-minded.
Of course.
To listen. I'm much more of a talker. I think we all do. It's just, once again, part of the human condition. But when it comes to respect, I don't think it's just a universal blanket, one-size-fits-all thing.
Okay.
I really value person-to-person associations, that connection.
So your issue is really the one-on-one piece. That's where you want to deal with it.
And the further removed you get from that, the more respect becomes theoretical.
Okay.
And possibly harmful, because imagine somebody who you've never met.
Okay.
They don't live in your neighborhood. In fact, they don't even live in your country.
Okay.
But they know for a fact how you ought to behave.
Right.
You would bristle at that. Some stranger telling you.
But isn't that person who's doing that literally not using respect? I mean, they are not respecting you.
Yeah.
So even they should be using respect also, because they're not respecting you.
Yes.
Good.
I agree. And then underneath it all also is morals. There's the issue of morality. And in my readings of Nietzsche, especially the book, The Genealogy of Morals, he asks a pretty simple question. Where do your morals come from? A lot of people can't answer that question.
Sure.
I mean, a lot of people, like, for example, if you're a Christian, you can say, it comes from the Bible.
Sure.
It comes from the Ten Commandments, or, what have you. But if you're not particularly religious, where do your morals come from? Well, it's kind of inculcation.
So community?
Life experience, but I think at the very root of it, it's feelings.
Okay.
It feels wrong. It feels like injustice. It feels. So they're feelings-based morality. And I prefer logic-based morality.
But even if someone has feelings-based morality, don't you still want to show them human respect and get them to see that your way's the right way?
Of course.
Oh, okay, good. So we're still on the same page.
Yeah.
We're still on the same page.
Yeah.
Because I appreciate the time you gave me. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. You know, this is my first chance to sit down with you and talk, and I was looking forward to it, and I'm even happier than I could have imagined.
That's awesome.
Such a great chance to meet you.
So where can people find you?
Oh, well, I came here to scout out a vending spot.
Nice.
I will be a vendor next time.
Awesome.
But I do a shameless plug for my company. It's reallyvote.com.
There we go.
And that's a political Rolodex for people who hate politics. They just want the facts. They don't want all the ideology. And then the other thing I'm doing here is I've entered in the contest to write a new constitution.
Wow, you're not playing games.
Oh, yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's great.
And I've got a preamble that you've heard of We the People. Well, talking about selfishness, maybe. I titled mine, I the Person.
Look at that. I love it. Douglas, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Good seeing you.
All right.